Welcome to the Growing People Podcast, where we take a 360-degree look at how people and organizations grow and develop. I'm John Losi, your guide as we explore personal and professional development. Do the second session in the 2023 Growth Expedition, and we know that we're starting by looking back at 2022. And I'll stop sharing just for a second. This is the time when we can get together. I always use this week between Christmas and New Year's to look back on the previous year, and then next week we'll start diving into creating a plan for 2023. With me today as we jump into this is Dan Miller and his amazing daughter Quinn, and we're excited about all this. So let's jump in and see what is happening. Last time we talked about, let me get to the right spot. On Monday, just a couple of days ago, we wanted to talk about, let's just celebrate. We finished the year and there's some good downtime right now. And we talked about how we're going to celebrate. We talked about how we're going to recover. And just so you know the way that I celebrated, Quinn, you know that I have a boy your age, right?
Yeah, his name is Pax.
I've got a son named Pax, and he and I, this was on Monday afternoon. We celebrated by going to his favorite ice cream place called Coach's.
Oh, can we get some ice cream, Dad?
I'm sure that we're gonna get some ice cream in the future. It is that time of year for sure.
Yeah. So we went and got ice cream, and we talked about, I asked him what was his favorite part of last year. And a couple of things. One was him graduating from second grade into third grade. So finishing second grade, of course, Christmas, because it just happened. And then he also said some of his favorite parts were going to the zoo, the Santa Barbara Zoo, and doing Taekwondo with his friends. So, and then I actually shared with him, and he was a captive audience, so I shared with him some of my favorite things from the previous year. Just being really happy that we're here all together. Next, what we did is we recovered. And what I did for the past 2 days, Monday and Tuesday in the afternoons, Monday I went out and the rest of my family was away, and I sat in a little hot tub thing for about 45 minutes, and I read and I listened to music, a little jazz, and it was outside at night in the dark with lights all around. It was really cool. So Dan, I'm curious, did you do anything to celebrate or recover? I noticed you're out of your onesie.
Yeah. I think the onesie was a big part of both of those. I think personally, one of my favorite ways to celebrate and recover, like at the end of a good year or any year, is to stop working and just have fun. And we've taken some good family vacations this year. That's one of the things I did, what you had talked about, look back at my calendar for 2022 and picked out like all the things that happened, which was a really great exercise. And we had some wonderful family vacations, which we haven't had nearly the volume in past years. And for Christmas, we've just been staycationing, and it really covers both recovery and celebration. Just getting to totally wear my Christmas onesie and hang out with my daughter and my wife all day, every day, and just not work so much. Yeah,
and I do think that for me, involving in family in my recovery is important, and finding that time together is really helpful. We went to the zoo the other day as a family, and we had our other friends with us, and then we ran into my niece and her husband and son, and that the family part is a big part of recovery. And then you mentioned the time to reflect, and over the past 2 days, what I did is I sat down and we talked about the exercise of just looking through your calendar, and I went week by week and came up with as I sat there, let me see if I can find it. There it is. So I typed out first, it was just January, and looked at my calendar, and these are all the things that came up in January. And then, February, same thing, March. And this past year, June was a major turning point because my major client kind of bailed on me.
Mhm.
And it shifted a whole bunch of things, but I'd forgotten how good the first half of the year was. And so in reflecting on that, it put me in a much better space to start what comes next, and what we're going to talk about in just a minute. But the other thing that I did is I noticed that I was consistent on things. So I said, what are the things I did every week? And what are the things I did every month? And I've never been really good at doing a newsletter. And I think every month I got it, except for 1 month, I think I got a newsletter out.
Nice.
And that helped me
More than I did.
I use the content from the newsletter to create articles and stuff to post on social media. So I was able to be more consistent with that. So those are a couple of things that that reflection puts me in the right place now to do some harder things. That's what this session is about, is how do you find the lessons? How do you find the lessons from this past year?
Mm.
And I think the start is the rest, recovery, celebration, reflection, those things. That's the starting point. But now it takes a little bit of more, what I would call, it's more directed review. It's different than, because when I did the reflection, it was not about trying to find meaning or anything. It was just looking back and saying, what the heck happened this year? And we talked a little bit about this last time, the idea of when you facilitate a group, sometimes they forget what happened at the start of the activity and they only debrief what happened at the end. And by doing a reflection, looking back, then you can start to say, well, what really happened through that time? And that's what my next step, and this is what I'm setting up for the next couple of days. So before Friday, what I want to do is I've got it all written out here. This is my reflection and review, but I've also got my plan from last year. And if you don't have a plan from last year, that's okay. But you can think about maybe thinking about in the review, what did you want to get done this year?
Mm-hmm.
And if you've done it beforehand, then you have a much, it's like creating an evaluation or an assessment. If you do it after you're in the program, you're pretty much just confirming, yeah, that's what I meant to do. But if you set the objectives and outcomes before you start, then you can see how you missed and how you hit. And there's a big fear on writing out outcomes and objectives or goals or whatever you want to call them. The fear is, what if I don't make it? And so when you write it out, it becomes a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And we fear if we don't meet the commitment. But really, what happens when you write it out, that failure shows you where your room to grow is. And the only way that you're going to know that is if you're honest with yourself. So the first step is doing this review and taking it and now looking at not just as a reflection, but looking at it as, well, how did I do? That looking back on all that reflection that you just did and comparing it to what you thought you were going to do, which leads to the next one, which is evaluate or assess. And you look back at the year with the intention of scoring yourself. That's even scarier.
Yeah, I've certainly never done that before.
Well, and I'm not a big fan of that to start off with until I'd done this for a couple of years, because and I was do I call it an assessment or I call it evaluation? Evaluation is an interesting word because what you're doing is you're looking at the value of something. Of what value was this? And in the scoring, you're saying, all right, and I keep it like I write them in such a way, I write my outcomes and goals and stuff like that in such a way that I can either it's a quantity amount. Did I hit the quantity? More often than not, it's something that is like a minus, a box, or a check, or a minus, a box, and a plus. And I can just say, how consistent was I at that? A lot of them are habits. Or did I get that done and to what extent? Because there's projects out there that if I get the project done and it was just done, but if it really was awesome, that's a check. Or if I got it mostly done, but it was a good thing that I didn't finish, that deserves a check, or even a box or a check. So that's what I need to do in this next couple of days. And it usually this one takes a little bit longer than the reflection. So I'll set aside maybe 2 blocks of 45 minutes or an hour And I don't do it all at one setting because there's something that happens. I'll do it and I'll stop. And that space in between allows me to think differently about things. So I'm scheduling 2 blocks, probably 2 1-hour blocks, where I'm going to sit down and I'm basically going to score myself.
How do you know what to score yourself on? Is that from last year's plan?
Yes, it's
Mhm.
how I specifically wrote them to be SMART goals or SMART waypoints or whatever you want to. I call them SMART waypoints. There's the SMART strategy, which is the big picture of going someplace, and there's these little markers that are to-dos, tasks, waypoints, things that are you hit along the way. And so I can give myself the overall, and I'll do this. I'll have a whole section where it's about let's say it's about my marketing. And overall, saying I will do this by this date on marketing, but then I have a bunch of stuff underneath that'll get me there. And I can I score all those other things. I have a point value for each of them. So it's the appearance of objectivity. It's totally subjective, but it gives me a way to kind of look and see a solid number that helps me. It's worthless unless there's a lesson in it for me. That's really what I want to do is I want to get find what the lessons are for 2022.
It allows you to measure your growth, which,
Right.
It's funny. I love being graded and evaluated because of that. I may be unique in that way, but I don't do it for myself. I always rely on other people to do it for me.
I had that conversation with a coaching client just yesterday.
Yep.
About all the stuff that she does for her people and in her job that she counts as inconsequential or unimportant for herself. So and to me, yeah, it's about measuring growth. It's also about finding your next best step, because if you don't know how you missed, you don't know how to hit. And that to me is the most value is finding out where I missed and then asking myself, was that good or bad? Did I put too much effort into something that wasn't getting me where I wanted to go? And is that why I missed? And that's it is failure. I never want to run from the word failure, but failure is that thing that tells us where we need to grow. It's like when you're shooting, I've heard this in archery and also in riflery, which is aim small, miss small, but also you've got to take a look at how you missed. The sniper never goes out alone because they need a spotter to tell them how they missed so they can get to that target the next shot. And that's what this is about for me. This whole the evaluation part is about figuring out, how did I miss? How did I hit? Was it worth it? Was it not? Because that leads to where do I want to be able to identify the lessons learned. And what I try to do, and I have this from last year, which is a 1-page, after I've done all my scoring and all that kind of stuff, which I usually end up scribbling. In fact, I think I have last year's. This is the simple book on personal development. Simple in that it's only 4 pages. But if this one has QR codes because it's physical, but if you get the PDF, you click on any of the images. First of all, the blank spaces are fillable. So they're formed so you can fill out the PDF. And then if you click on any of the images, you end up being able to go deeper. Wherever you're curious, if you want more exercises or information, even formats, you click on those pictures and it takes you 2 or 3 levels deeper into that material if you're curious or if you're looking for more. So instead of having to read a whole big book, you got 4 pages. If that's all you need, great. But if you want more, you can go deeper into them. And the scoring that I did, I'll show you my score sheet from last year. Let's see. Oh. Yeah, you can start to see. Quinn, do you get in class? Do you get like check marks and stuff like that?
What do you
See,
mean?
I scored myself on, this is like my last year's test. So you can see that I got a 3 and a 2, and the checks are worth 3, the boxes are worth 2, and the minuses are worth 1. Oh no, the minuses are worth nothing. So, and you can see I just went down. So this is pages and pages, but then I get it down to a 1-page lesson so that I can share with people. I believe that the best way to solidify learning is to teach it to somebody else, or at least share it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I found
So
that
you looking forward to a lessons learned post at some time in the near future?
Well, I'll probably do it on Monday,
Yeah.
because that's what we'll do is the same. I mean, on Friday, what I'll do when we meet together, I'll talk about what lessons I discovered. I'll probably post it and all that kind of stuff. But cool thing about Facebook is I'm getting these memories. I got a memory from 2015 that I reposted today, and it's the first time I attempted to make my own purpose statement.
Oh,
And I got feedback on it, but it's remarkably similar to what I've landed on for both myself and my company. So yeah. So that's what I'm going to do over the next 2 days and the first part takes more time of the evaluation and getting it all down. That takes the time. And as I'm doing that, I'm jotting notes about what I learned. Then it's a matter of editing it down to a single page of lessons. So
Have you seen other people evaluate themselves in different ways than as detailed as you do it?
I've seen people do more detailed where they're actually, the way they set up their goals is like with, they're able to almost graph it out. It's all based on really measurable outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, did you, there's percentages and all that kind of stuff when they listed out their goals for the year. I will improve my sales by this amount of money. And then underneath it is, I will have 100 posts by the end of the year. I will have created this and that, and it becomes even more detailed. And it's all the way you score yourself will be based on how you've set up your goals. If you haven't set those out, like really done SMART goals, SMART waypoints, and made them specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, or related and time bound. If you haven't done those things, it's harder to give yourself a score. But you can still go back and just give a general, in your reflections and all the stuff that you did, you look back and you can just give a that was good and that was bad, red light, green light thing, or red light, yellow light, green light, or something like that, to where it's totally just how I felt about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that might work a little better for me.
Yeah, because then what you can do is, as you're doing that, you're capturing lessons about what you want to be this year.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll take a look at the red lights might become goals that are avoidance goals. I don't want to do that. And then you can create achievement goals based on the green stuff, which is, I want to forward this. I want to work towards this.
Yeah.
I just heard a great podcast talking about those types of motivations. The things that motivate you to stay away from something and things that motivate you to move towards something.
Cool.
So yeah, that's the plan for Friday, is get together and talk about, ultimately it's that last 1-pager of what lessons did you learn this year. And then the task between Friday and starting on Monday is, now you've set up expeditions and you've set up adventures before, correct?
Yeah, I have.
So what we're doing on Friday is one of the first things that you do when you're setting up an adventure is decide where you're going to go.
Mm-hmm. So you can plan your route.
Well, yeah, but you have your destination before you plan your route.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's success. So we're going to talk about using all this information to define success for 2023.
Nice.
And so that's all that it's going to be, is what lessons, and then how do you clearly define success in a way that you can evaluate? And it could be that you're defining success, you want to work on one thing and you keep it simple and you work on one thing. That's a total great use of this. For me, it's a matter of, I use it for, I look at a wellness concept. I look at the 5 different areas of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to find success in my emotional, social, intellectual, physical, and spiritual worlds. And I kind of use that and create my goals in those 5 areas, and then waypoints underneath all those. And that's kind of, I'm going to look back at the year and then define success based on those things. So, and then comes on Monday, we start talking about like exact pathfinding.
Mhm.
And I know, so when I would work on creating trips and stuff like that, we'd have our destination, and then I'd pull out the topo maps and do a little assessment of the terrain.
Right.
I know where I'm starting from. I know the qualities that I have when I'm pulling with myself, and I'll look at the equipment I have, what I'm bringing along with, and I'll say, all right, I don't have climbing gear, so we're going to avoid the climbing parts. I mean, I do have stuff to cross rivers, so we'll take the routes that have the rivers. Or I don't have a boat, and it's going to be really cold, so I don't want to get wet. So we'll go more, we'll take that route. And that's, first you assess the terrain, and then you make your plan. And so that's what's going to happen on Monday.
Yeah. Well, that metaphor definitely resonates with me. And I really appreciate you sharing your process, because without that example, I rarely do this kind of stuff. And I'm trying to surround myself with people who help me fill the gaps. So you're filling that role very well, my friend.
Well, and I appreciate you being here, and it's really helpful to have somebody bounce this stuff after and to react to it.
Mhm.
And it's been fun. You have Quinn there sitting on your lap. It's a good reminder of why you do what you do.
Oh yeah.
And I've got the same thing with my son, and so it's fun to walk through this with you, helping me reflect. Because in the past I've worked groups where I led the group and we worked together, but I wasn't able to live it out in public. I love this year's process because I'm basically putting it out there and saying, this is what I do. This is how it works. The scary part is going to be when I'm sharing lessons learned. In the past, there's been a lot of positive lessons. I think I'm going to find some really challenging lessons this year that is going to impact how I do my planning. It's going to probably be, the past couple of years, it's been really easy to make the plan because it was add a couple of things, but for the most part, keep doing what I was doing. And I don't think I have that luxury this year.
Yeah. Sounds like a great opportunity for growth.
Imagine that. Yeah.